Hey guys, welcome back to more neighbor stories. In this video, a dumb lying Karen repeatedly parked in my private driveway claiming she bought my property so she has a right to use it. Let's dive right into the video full of entitled people. And the first one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for sabotaging my boss's keys because he treated everyone terribly?" I, 34th male, used to work night shifts at a manufacturing plant many years ago. The schedule was brutal, constantly flipping between days and nights with barely any time for my body to adjust. But the worst part of the job was not the hours or the physical demands, it was my boss. Where do I even begin with this guy? He was the kind of manager who seemed to genuinely enjoy making everyone's lives miserable. He would scream at people for the smallest mistakes, give everyone conflicting instructions and then blame us when things went wrong, and constantly threatened our jobs if we didn't meet impossible standards. One time he made a coworker cry in front of everyone because her production numbers were 2% below target, even though she had just returned from bereavement leave after losing her mother. I tried talking to HR about his behavior several times, but they always said the same thing: "We will look into it." Spoiler alert, they never did. This guy was apparently producing results for the higher ups, so they turned a blind eye to how he achieved them. The thing about this boss is that he was incredibly careless with his personal belongings despite being obsessively controlling with us. He would leave his keys on top of his locker every single day. I would watch him toss them up there at the beginning of each shift like he owned the place. Those keys became a symbol of everything wrong with him, careless with his own stuff but demanding perfection from everyone else. One particularly rough night, after he had spent hours berating our team for a machine breakdown that was not even our fault, I noticed those keys sitting up there as usual. Something in me just snapped. I had a small metal file in my toolbox that I used for deburring metal edges on the production line. Without really thinking it through, I grabbed his keys during my break and took them to the maintenance room and filed down a couple teeth on his front door keys, just enough to make it not work properly, but not so much that it would be immediately obvious what had happened. I put the keys back, finished my shift, and went home. The next day, I came in to find him in the foulest mood I'd ever seen him in. He was telling anyone who would listen about how he got home at 2 AM after a 12-hour shift, only to find his damn door lock was broken, and had to call an emergency locksmith, which cost him $200 and meant he only got 3 hours of sleep. "Can you believe my luck?" he complained to the group supervisor. "I've had that lock for years with no problems." I just nodded sympathetically while feeling a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. I knew what I did was not right, but seeing him deal with even a fraction of the stress he constantly puts us through felt like some small justice. About 2 months later, when things at work had gotten even worse, if that was possible, I did it again. This time, I filed down a different tooth on the same key. The next day, same story, another sleepless night, another expensive locksmith visit, and a few weeks after that, I decided to go for his car key. I was careful to only file it just enough that it would still start the car, but would occasionally stick in the ignition. The day after that, he was ranting about how he had to call roadside assistance because his key got stuck and nearly broke off in his car's ignition. That is when I heard him say something that made me stop. "It's suspicious that all these locks keep failing. Someone might be messing with me." I immediately stopped my little campaign. The satisfaction was not worth potentially losing my job, or worse if I get caught, but what I didn't know was that I was not the only one who had issues with this boss. About a month later, I came to work to find a commotion. My boss's locker had completely disappeared overnight, not just broken into, the entire metal locker was gone, contents and all. Management conducted a full investigation questioning everyone on the night shift, but nobody knew anything, or at least nobody was talking. The rumor spread through the floor was that some of the guys from maintenance had removed it during the night and loaded it into a truck and dumped it at a construction site in the city where they were pouring concrete foundations for a new office building. I never found out if that was true, but my boss never got his locker or its contents back. The interesting thing is that after losing his locker, my boss's behavior changed. Maybe it was the shock of realizing how much the crew disliked him, or maybe management finally had a word with him during the investigation. He became a bit less aggressive, a bit more reasonable with deadlines, and started treating people with a basic level of respect. I left that job about a year later for a better opportunity, but I've always wondered if what I did was justified. And yes, he was terrible to everyone, but sabotaging someone's property is not exactly the high road. I know it caused him real inconvenience, cost him money, and probably some significant stress. So Reddit, am I the a-hole here? And yeah guys, let me know in the comments, do you think OP was the a-hole for this beautiful act of petty revenge? And would you have done the same? Or do you think he is actually the douchebag here? Comment number 1, not the a-hole, this is some beautiful petty revenge. This guy was a nightmare boss who created a toxic work environment and faced zero consequences from HR or management. You found a way to give him a taste of the frustration and stress he was constantly putting you all through. Was it the right thing to do? Maybe not, but sometimes people need to learn lessons the hard way. Comment number 2, you're the a-hole bro, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Being passive-aggressive and damaging someone's property is not the answer, no matter how bad they are. You should have documented everything and taken it to the labor board or found another job. The next comment says, what the F is wrong with you? Your boss was clearly terrible, but damaging someone's property is not okay. What if he had been locked out during an emergency? There are better ways to handle workplace issues, like documenting everything and going above HR to senior leadership or even finding a new job. And yeah guys, not 100% sure if I will agree with that. I think OP went the right way, but either way, the next one is titled Karen parks in my driveway illegally without permission, ignores cops because she bought my house. So I'm a 30-year-old mechanic who lives in a suburb with my wife. We've been here a couple of years and all in all, it was a pretty smooth transition out of our city life. The neighbors are nice, I'm closer to my work and we've got a bigger space to focus on our family. It was a nice thing to have, especially when money was tight and we did not really have the time or patience to deal with unnecessary stuff. I'm grateful this all happened after we got settled in, but I'm still just appalled by how someone can be so good at making people miserable. We have a 2-car garage, which is half full of boxes, but 2 cars, so the driveway has been half empty since we moved in. It used to make my wife nervous that someone would break in if they assumed no one was home while we were at work, but I was able to calm her down by reminding her that this area had a really good reputation and we had good neighbors. Well, I'm still technically right, but I never thought I would have to defend our home in the way we did when Karen showed up. So Karen is a short middle-aged woman with short blonde hair. Her personality, nothing good to report. We first met her when we saw her stumble out of a house at the end of a street, obviously drunk. From the way she and the people inside were talking, they were friends and they all really liked to party, even though some of them looked old enough to be my mom. Neither of us had a problem with party people as long as they didn't bring it over to us, and to this day we still don't have a problem with Karen's friends, not really anyways. A week ago though, I came home from work around 6 PM to find an SUV parked in my driveway. At first I assumed my wife just invited a friend over and was fine with parking on the other side, but then I remembered that she was out grocery shopping. Confused, I checked the license plate to see if I knew who it was. I did not recognize the car and it was blocking the side that went up into the half of the garage that was open, so I had to just park in the street. I texted my wife asking if she knew whose car it was and she said she had no idea. She also made it very clear that I should keep my guard up in case someone was in our house and started freaking out over the phone. After calming her down and hanging up, I remembered where I had seen the car. It was clearly Karen's. She sometimes parked at the end of the street when she came over to visit her friends, but they were doing some kind of construction or renovations to the sidewalk, so that entire area was blocked off and she obviously could not park on the other side. I tried not to get mad and hoped that there was some reason better than not wanting to park another street down. I tried to be optimistic, but given what I had seen with Karen before, it was gonna be hard to be positive about her. I really was not in the mood to draw this whole thing out, I just wanted her car gone by the time my wife got home. Just to make sure, I checked the neighborhood's policy on trespassing with vehicles. I don't know why I was not confident about something like this. I think I was just scared of those parties that were being thrown. Karen opened the door when I knocked and she looked a bit tipsy, not at all interested in what I had to say. I decided to just do the safe thing and call the police to get her off my property. Someone who was as regularly drunk as Karen was never gonna listen to me if I never enforced punishment, so I was going to get over with as soon as I could. An officer arrived a few minutes later and I showed him the car. I explained that this was my property and that I never gave Karen permission to park here, so I wanted her off my property as she was clearly trespassing. Despite that very straightforward explanation, the officer still asked Karen what she was doing. She looked at me all softly, happy, and explained that she had recently bought my house and was coming by for a visit. She explained how she didn't have any proof on her, but that it was okay for her to be here since the house belonged to both of us. It was hurting my brain to try and figure out the mental gymnastics she was doing to get that story together. I could also tell the cop was confused too. He asked if she could find somewhere else to park, but she just snapped back and explained how this was rightfully her place to park and that until I showed proof, she was staying there. The cop just sighed and said that we needed to figure out what was going on and that if I could get proof that she did not own the house, he would come back to deal with her. Since it was getting late, that most likely meant tomorrow. Karen just smirked at me when the cop left and walked back to her friend's house without another word. I stood there stunned in my driveway for a good minute. Not only was I incredibly pissed that Karen would have the audacity to park in my driveway, but the fact that the cop believed her was even worse. What if he came back and she had a more detailed story? Would that be enough for him? Well, I was gonna make sure that did not happen. My wife got home a minute later, right around sunset. She parked her car in the garage and asked if I figured out whose car was next to me. I explained everything and she seemed just as confused and upset as me. We tried to come up with a plan of how to get rid of the car and eventually we figured out a plan. It was easy to prove that it was our house and that we did not want Karen there, but instead of the police we were gonna find another group to kick her out. We have a couple of large bins for our trash and recycling, and so we decided that we could put bricks in them and lodge them behind the car so Karen could not back out again. We worked fast in case she noticed, and before long she came back to her car. She spotted us snooping around her car and what we had done with the bins, and she immediately started yelling. By this point she was definitely drunk. I actually think we were doing her and her possible drunk driving victims a favor by stopping her. She tried to back out of the driveway, but the bins were too heavy and too close for her to get away. She's also around 5 feet tall, so moving the bins herself was out of the question, though she did give it her best shot. I explained that she could either explain herself to the cop tomorrow and apologize, or she could leave her car here and get it in the morning. She of course was not happy with that, but she figured she could just stay over at her friend's house. They certainly had room to spare if the outside of their house was any indication. Once I was sure that she was gonna stay off my property, I went back inside and straight to bed. According to my wife, I did not sleep well that night. In the morning I woke up to make sure the car was still in my driveway and then immediately called the towing company. It took longer than I wanted for them to show up, especially since I kept checking to make sure Karen did not catch on or try to steal her car back, but they eventually did. I explained the situation to them and showed how Karen had no legal right to be on my property, nor did she own any part of it. I helped the towers move the dumpster out of the way before letting them take the car out. Right as that was happening, I heard shouting from across the street. I looked up to see Karen running, well, more like stumbling towards me, half-dressed in the outfit from last night. She was not stupid enough to get in the way of the truck currently pulling her car out of my driveway, but she was stupid enough to try and throw her shoe at the driver. She missed by a good mile. Despite her obviously drunk behavior though, she was sober enough to go up to me and explain how horrible of a person I was and how there was no way she was gonna let this slide. She pulled out her phone and started recording everything, and I just happily explained that I was the one working within the law and that she could do whatever she wanted, but if she parked here again, she would expect the same outcome. She began having one of her signature meltdowns that I've heard about. Since the incident, I've had a few of my neighbors come to me about their own problems with Karen and how when she was losing a battle with none of her friends to support her, she'd begin fake crying and stomping around. Filming her abuses, as she called me, seemed to be a coping mechanism, and I just let her get it all out. No point adding more fuel to the fire. The cop did eventually come back though, since we happened to be the only one doing patrols around our neighborhood, and I explained what happened to him. He was happy to hear everything worked out and commended my efforts, since he is aware that a lot of people are not good at restraining their anger when it comes to annoying people. I'm grateful he told me that. It makes me feel even more worth it. From what I've heard though, she got the car back. I don't see it on the street anymore, so either she is given up on those friends or someone is driving her around. Probably for the best, especially since I doubt her drinking slowed down after what happened. By the way, I've gotten closer to the people on the street, and so has my wife. They often talk about that it was nice that someone actually had the courage to shut Karen up, and it's a bit of a neighborhood joke at this point. I really don't paint myself as a hero or anything, nor am I writing this because I think everyone should tow and call the cops at the first sign of something wrong, but believe me when I say that some people cannot be reasoned with. I hope that the Karen part of the world eventually realizes that they don't contribute to anything and that anyone who has similar issues in their life actually does something about it. Tow that SUV, call her out, trust me, it's an amazing feeling. And yep guys, OP definitely should not feel bad about what they did. Karen was 100% in the wrong here, you should always tow these people. The next one is a malicious compliance story. To start, this is not malicious compliance against the Japanese police as it is against a customer from hell. Oh, and if the police are called to a dispute, they won't take sides unless a law is broken in front of them. So, just to make it clear, Ripe Stars, this story happened in Japan. Anyway, that is for the courts to sort out. They just keep the peace, talk to the two parties and try and work things out. So on to the story. In 1990 to 2008, I was a club owner in Japan. I rented the place from a rascally old man who let me do pretty much what I wanted. The club had a motorized mirror ball hanging from the ceiling, a pool table and the projector there left over from the former renters that the landlord said I was free to use. I had made a lot of money using the downtime. A club is usually wasted space during the day, setting up party space type events. After weddings, reunions and the like, here is an actual picture of one of the sit-down type events. The tables would disappear at night and you then have a dance floor. So one party got a little rowdy and during festivities the crazy host lady thought it was a good idea to pick up a chair and swing it over her head. Don't ask me why, she was very drunk. The arc of the swing launched the mirror ball into the air, smashing to the floor in 1,000 shiny pieces. After my staff cleaned up the broken glass, she promised to pay for it and I thought that was that. I jumped online, found a like model on Amazon Japan and added the price to their bill. I don't remember the price, but being motorized put it up past $100 with non-motorized versions selling for much less. About 3 hours after, a very angry host lady's husband shows up, receipt in hand, saying that I scammed the drunk host lady and he was gonna call the cops and shut me down and ramble. Our back and forth went on for quite a bit and honestly, I was getting a bit tired of his macho in-your-face attitude. He then said he would also talk to my landlord and get me evicted. I was at the eye-rolling stage and sarcastically said, "Oh, don't get him involved. You will regret making him mad." Unfortunately, sarcasm does not translate well in Japanese and he jumped on my humor gaffe to say that I was threatening his life and then called the cops. The cops were totally professional, but a bit overzealous in responding to the call. 3 patrol cars and 2 bikes showed up. I guess the dude made it out that I was in league with the mob and I guess gaijin, which means white person Japanese, plus yakuza in the 1990s to 2000s means overkill. They listened to us together and then they separated us and got each side of the story. Then, just to be sure, the police talking to each of us switched places and asked all over again the same questions. Slowly the cars, one by one, went back to work, leaving only 2 motorcycle cops with us in a back and forth argument. All very tedious. Finally, one of the cops pulled me aside and said, "Look, he's willing to pay for the damage, but only if you apologize for threatening his life." Being American, where we see lawsuits everywhere, I was very reluctant to say such a thing, so I walked back to the man and the police and I asked everyone, if I apologize for getting him frightened, this whole business is done, right? Angry man has his arms crossed with a macho smug, "Yeah boy, say you're sorry," look on his face. The 2 policemen are also waiting for me to speak. "I'm really sorry, really so sorry that you get scared so easily. Had I known," implying your weakness, "I would have chosen my words more carefully." Damn, if extremely polite Japanese cannot turn into a slap in the face. The dude turns beet red and I swear to you, the policeman on the left let his guard down just enough to let the corners of his mouth twitch into a grin just for a moment. Then the policeman said, "He did as you asked, now time to go home." And they herded him to his car. And yeah guys, before we end the video, we will read the funny story from r/petty revenge. It is titled, "No more fast food litter on my lawn." So this was the pettiest of petty revenges, but it made me happy. So a few years ago, we kept finding fast food litter on our lawn, the paper bag with all the wrappers and cups inside. We live on a somewhat busy street, so we figured it was some a-hole tossing it out their window when driving by. Then one day I was in the front room when out of the window I saw the teenage boy next door pull up, get out of his car and drop his fast food bag on our lawn as he walked into his own damn house where there is, I assume, a trash can. However, he also left his car window slightly open. So here's what I did. I went outside, picked up the bag, and poured its contents through the window. The soda cups still had a little bit in them, so hopefully those spilled on the seats, and then I balled up the bag and put that in there too. And I stormed back inside. You have to understand, he loved his car more than most members of his own family, and he must have realized who had done that, or maybe saw me from his house because he never tossed his trash in front of our house again. And yeah guys, please check out my endless playlist on the left, and I will see you again tomorrow.